Hi, I'm back with Tumtum and Nutmeg. So, Aunt Ivy just discovered, well, she knows a little bit more about Nutmeg, right? Because Arthur was upset and said that their friend Nutmeg gave it to her. Remember? Oh, okay. And we paused in the middle of the story. So I'm going to go back to where we left off. Here's Aunt Ivy. She looks to be looking in the window of the dollhouse. Do you see what she sees on the furniture there? Okay, much later when the children were outdoors, Aunt Ivy snuck up to the attic to investigate. The ceiling sloped down on both sides, too low for a grown-up to stand up under, so she had to crawl across the room on her knees. She made straight for the dollhouse. Kneeling down, she peered in through its kitchen window and saw the little plate piled with biscuit crumbs, and then she pressed her nose to the living room window and saw the mouse hairs on the sofa. And she looked in an upstairs window and saw more mouse hairs on the bed. Ha, she thought, fairies indeed, as I thought. Those idiotic children have been feeding mice, and the cheeky little vermin must have been cavorting around in the doll's clothes. And Ivy knelt there wondering what to do. As long as there was food lying around, the mice were bound to return, so this was clearly the place to snare them. I'd catch them. But if she put down a mousetrap, Lucy might remove it. Something more subtle was called for. Aunt Ivy sat and gnawed her lips for a minute, like that. And then she had an especially nasty idea. Can you guess? Especially nasty. I told you I don't really care for Aunt Ivy very much. Poison, she thought cruelly. Tonight, when Arthur and Lucy have gone to bed, I'll creep back up here and I'll put mouse poison in the dollhouse. Now, mouse poison is a brutal thing, which can take a mouse quite unawares. At first, he does not even realize he's eating it, and then it starts burning horribly at his insides. Aunt Ivy knew how vicious it was, and that's why she thought it was such a good idea. Feeling very pleased with herself, she hurried downstairs, wrapped herself in a long black coat, and went outdoors. She turned left at the cottage gate and walked purposefully down the snowbound lane, past the duck pond and the war memorial, until she came to a village shop. The village shop, not a village shop, the village shop. As she entered, Arthur and Lucy were just coming out. After all the upset of the morning, Lucy had agreed that they should spend all the money on sweets after all. But Aunt Ivy did not appear to notice them. There was a strange glint in her eye. Behind the counter, the shopkeeper, Mrs. Patterson, was slowly replacing the lid on a big glass jar of gumdrops. "Do you stock mouse poison?" Aunt Ivy asked tartly, glaring at her. Mrs. Patterson sighed. She did not approve of mouse poison, but she prided herself on stocking everything. She bent her head and started digging in a deep wooden drawer beneath the till. "I don't think we do, Mrs. Mildew," she said. "I certainly haven't ordered any myself." And oh! Mrs. Patterson stood up again, holding a small red sachet. "You're in luck, love. We have only one packet left." And Ivy paid for it hurriedly and tucked it into her pocket. Then she walked back to Rose Cottage with a skip in her step. I don't approve. Okay, there's another pause. That evening, she bided her time until 10 o'clock and then picked up the flashlight from the hall table, kicked off her shoes, and crept upstairs to the attic. As she poked her head over the top step, she could hear Arthur and Lucy breathing deeply, fast asleep. She slithered onto the floor and crawled over to the dollhouse. She shone her light through its kitchen window and saw the plate of crumbs on the table. That's the packet of poison in Aunt Ivy's fingernails. She reached into the pocket of her skirt and retrieved the crumpled packet of poison, tearing off a corner with her teeth. That doesn't sound like a good idea. She wriggled her thin hand through the dollhouse window and released a sprinkling of the pale powder onto the plate, mixing it into the crumbs with a long red fingernail. "There'll be 2 very sick fairies in the morning," she thought nastily, turning off the flashlight. Bum, bum, bum. Now, I will tell you, this is actually 3 books in one, this book. It's a compilation, so it has 3 books in it, and there's a whole other big book with 3 more books in it, and they all have Tumtum and Nutmeg in them. This is just the very first story, so you know it's going to turn out okay, all right? So I don't want you to worry about that. Things will get worse before they get better, but it's going to be okay. Okay, and we will read chapter 6 next.